Suddenly, the electricity bill skyrocketed. In a panic, we called the utility company, and the technician came over, looking puzzled. "Have you seen this wire before?" As my husband, Sam, and I rushed over, the technician carefully moved a plant nearby to make it easier for us to see. From an external outlet of our house, a strange wiring extended, heading towards the in-laws' house. "Do you know anything about this wiring?" Sam and I exchanged glances. We were probably thinking the same thing. "Hey, Sam. Could this be?" "Yeah, no doubt. This is why our electricity bill suddenly spiked." Sam then reached out to the outlet and quickly unplugged the wiring. The moment he did it, a high-pitched scream came from the direction of the in-laws' house. "Ah!" It must be Mael, Nicola. Then, some hysterical muttering was heard, and the voice came out of the door, heading our way. And there, Nicola burst out from the garden. "I am Mary, a 32-year-old housewife. My hobby is eating sweets. Every day, I gather information about sweets by asking friends or researching on my own. Sam, my kind husband, always accompanies me in this hobby. Sam and I, both the same age, have been together since college. I have always loved Sam for his kindness, unchanged from the moment we met. Incidentally, I also adored Tony and Nicola, Sam's parents who raised him. Many of my married friends struggle with their Maels. I've even heard stories that ended in divorce due to issues with the MIL. Fortunately, such problems were irrelevant to our family. Nicola, who shares my love for sweets, always delights in the treats I bring over, and my Fael, Tony, though a man of few words, always gives a sense of comfort with his constant smiles. Both of them are dear to me, and I like them so much. Tony and Nicola now live about a 30-minute drive away. Not too close, yet not too far, just the right distance. But sometimes, I think, would it be possible to live together with such a couple? Not that I want to live together. But, perhaps, it could work out well. I was fond of them to the point of entertaining such thoughts. However, the world isn't always so sweet, as I would later come to realize the truth. One day, I was baffled by the news Sam shared with me. "What? Tony and Nicola?" Turns out, Tony and Nicola were moving into the vacant house next door to us. I had assumed their in-laws' house was owned, but it turned out to be a rental. They were considering moving since their place was getting old. And when they found out the house next to ours was vacant, they set their sights on it. It was an unexpected close-distance living arrangement. I was instantly overwhelmed by anxiety. We had been getting along fine with Tony and Nicola, but would it continue to be okay? Living next door meant we could see each other every day if we wanted. I liked Tony and Nicola, but seeing them every day might be too much. But it was too late to say, "It's too close, so please don't move in." When Sam heard about the move, he gently advised Tony and Nicola that it might not be a good idea. However, they didn't listen, saying, "We're so close now, it'll be fine." I wanted to kick myself for my previously optimistic thought that living together could be possible. As my anxiety grew, Tony and Nicola moved in. Though I greeted them warily, things seemed fine at first. We kept a good distance, and some boundaries were established. But as they settled in, Nicola began to cross those boundaries. That was the force that overcame all the actions we didn't want her to do. Unannounced visits became the norm, and when she came over, they acted as if our house was her own. Not only that, but our actions seemed to be constantly monitored. Then, after finishing an unannounced visit and dinner inspection one day, Nicola made an outrageous suggestion. "Hey, Mary, I've been thinking, why don't you stop locking the door?" "What?" I couldn't believe my ears. Because can you believe it? In this day and age, Nicola was suggesting we keep our house unlocked, making it accessible to anyone at any time. That's not reassuring at all. Of course, it's unwelcome. Ever since Nicola moved in, even the doorbell ringing startles me, and now there's the added possibility of Nicola slipping into our house unnoticed. Again, of course, that's unwelcome, given how dangerous things are these days. I guess not locking the door does feel a bit scary, I said with a smile, trying not to offend, but Nicola frowned. Oh, Mary, you worry too much. But it's okay. Once we get to know the neighbors better, I'll make sure they look out for us. Until then, well, Tony and I are around. We'll be popping by often, she said, her words coming from a place of goodwill, which I appreciated. That's why I couldn't say that her frequent visits were becoming a burden. But there's only so much one can take. Last week, Nicola came over every day for 7 days. I end up having tea with Nicola at our house every day. It's no wonder frustrations arise when we're together so much. I've really come to understand that maintaining distance is crucial in the relationship between a mother-in-law and her son's wife. Nicola has been doing as she pleases, leaving unwanted plants in our yard or planting flowers without asking me. If it were once in a few months, I could tolerate it, but daily is a different story. Regarding the locking of the doors, Nicola has brought it up several times since. I've managed to convince her by emphasizing security consciousness. But then, Nicola started asking for a spare key. That's something I'll have to get Sam to refuse. There's no way I can give such a terrifying item to Nicola as she is now. Though Nicola can be difficult, I hadn't come to dislike her yet. Her meddling comes from a place of kindness. I felt more guilt about rejecting her than anything. But over time, my feelings started to change. Whether it's me who has changed, Nicola, or both, I can't say. But I began to feel discomfort and irritation at Nicola's remarks. It was a few months after Nicola and her family moved in. By then, Nicola's visits after lunch had become a routine part of our household. As for Tony, when I asked what he was up to, it seems he's usually out walking or shopping by himself. I suggested, "You could go with him." But she declined, saying, "Walking tires me out." Lately, Nicola has turned into a rather spiteful mother-in-law. When I make tea, she used to simply thank me, but now she always has a complaint: it's lukewarm or it's too weak. Whenever she opens her mouth, it's either gossip or criticism. Being with Nicola makes me feel negative. Yet, I can't just refuse her, so I nod along and force a smile. It's terrible, isn't it? The grass in their yard has been left to grow wild. I'm almost tempted to cut it myself. Nicola was passionately discussing a neighbor's neglected garden today. Then I called out to them. "Oh." She stopped talking suddenly, so I instinctively followed her gaze, which had turned towards the bookshelf. Perhaps she found a book that interested her. It would be nice if we could read together in silence. "Did you find a book that interests you?" I was about to stand up and head to the bookshelf when Nicola reached for something not on the bookshelf but on the shelf next to it. "Nicola! That's not okay!" I saw what she had taken and reached out hastily. But Nicola opened it with an unaffected expression. "Oh my! Just look at this, Mary. Didn't we overspend last month? Look at this electricity bill, it's twice what we pay at our house." Nicola was looking over our household budget book as if it were a gossip magazine. "Please stop! Give it back!" I said, snatching it away, and Nicola laughed. "No need to panic. It's just that, Mary, you seem a bit bad at saving, aren't you? Poor Sam, having a wife who can't save money. You should try a little harder, okay?" I could feel my face getting hot. The cover and spine clearly labeled it as a household budget book. Yet, the audacity to open someone else's budget book was unbelievable. And sweets, too. I love sweets as well, so I understand, but a wife who can't save shouldn't be entitled to sweets, should she? Nicola went on to criticize me for spending too much on groceries and unbelievable electricity bills. Then bragged about how good she is at saving. After a while, she seemed satisfied and left. After Nicola's departure, I was so frustrated that I couldn't stop crying. The stress might have been building up. I just can't take it anymore. I cried until Sam came home. Mom's words don't have to bother you. I know it's hard. I'm really sorry. I'll tell her not to come over anymore. Thanks, I appreciate it. After being comforted by Sam, I felt a bit better and decided to discuss something else. It was about the electricity bill. Just like Nicola pointed out, it was high. There hadn't been any changes, yet the bill had suddenly spiked these past few months. I was concerned, but dealing with Nicola had distracted me. Sam looked at the electricity bill and frowned. This is definitely strange. Yeah, isn't it? The next bill is coming soon, right? If it's still odd, we should contact the power company. A few days later, a bill arrived for over $1,300, more than double the usual. We hurriedly decided to have the power company come and check. The power company employee thoroughly inspected everything. Then, we were called over to see something peculiar. Did you know about this line? Rushing over, the employee moved a plant nearby so we could see better. Hidden by long leaves was an external outlet we hadn't used since the house was built. Having completely forgotten about it. From that outlet, as the employee had said, a wire extended towards the in-laws' house. Do you know anything about wire? Sam and I looked at each other. Likely thinking the same thing. Hey, Sam. This means... Yeah, no doubt. This is why our electricity bill suddenly increased. Just to be sure, we followed the wiring with the employee. Pushing aside hedges and overgrown weeds, we found the wire indeed entered the in-laws' house shed. We couldn't see where it connected from there, but it was clear the in-laws' house was involved. The employee's expression hardened. Should we call the police? No, it might come to that, but let's talk first. This house belongs to our parents. The employee, tense at first with the suspicion of electricity theft, relaxed upon learning it was a family home. Is that so? Then I'll leave it to you. Thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it. We escorted the employee back to our driveway and watched him leave. After saying goodbye, we faced each other, thinking. Sam sighed deeply, holding his head. I'm sorry for having such a mom. Don't worry about it, or I can't really say that. What do we do now? Tony and Nicola were probably home, as usual. Should we go talk to them now, or plan a strategy first? Sam, hand over his mouth, walked towards the external outlet left exposed after the employee moved the plant. Earlier, the staff avoided the plant, so I could clearly see the external outlet. Thinking about it, Nicola placing the plant there might have been to hide it. It felt wrong to suspect her, but it seemed the only logical explanation. What's this connected to? Sam then reached for the outlet and quickly pulled out the wiring. Is it okay to pull it out? I just did. Thinking about them taking electricity from our house all this time makes me angry. Well, the employee is a witness. They can't talk their way out of this. If needed, we have that. You're right. I nodded in agreement. That's when it happened. Ah! A high-pitched scream came from the in-laws' house. It must have been Nicola. Next, some hysterical mumbling, then the voice moved towards the door and headed our way. Nicola burst out of the house towards the garden with force.
Wow!
She hadn't expected anyone to be there. Seeing us, Nicola exclaimed in shock.
Oh! You scared me! What are you doing there?
She came at us aggressively, so I stood my ground and replied.
What about you, Nicola? Do you need something in our garden? You seemed quite flustered.
Well, that's... Nicola awkwardly averted her eyes. Sam, holding the unplugged wire firmly in his hands, was right there. Nicola exclaimed,
Ah!
and tried to snatch the wire from Sam's hands. Sam twisted away, hiding the wire behind his back.
What are you doing? No, that's my line.
Sam held the wire in front of Nicola's face and said in a low, serious voice.
This was plugged into our outlet.
Tom emphasized our, and Nicola glanced upwards, momentarily flustered.
So what?
Do you know where this wire leads?
I have no idea about that. But put it back right now. It's causing trouble over here because it's unplugged.
She demanded it should be plugged back in without knowing where it leads. And she is claiming harm from it being unplugged. That was as practically an admission of guilt. Yet, Nicola seemed unapologetically frantic. The reason for Nicola's panic was clear. I stood next to Sam, smiling brightly.
Nicola, please calm down. We can't plug in a wire when we don't know where it leads. This is our outlet, you know? It's fine to plug it in. Just a bit won't hurt. So. Oh. Nicola, you've always told me not to waste electricity, even a little, and that Sam is unfortunate to have a wife who can't even save on electricity. You said that, didn't you?
Well, that's... Nicola was restless.
It's too late,
she murmured softly, almost panicking.
What time is it now?
It's 9:57 a.m.
It's no use now.
With that, Nicola ran off, stumbling as she went. Sam was puzzled by Nicola's bizarre behavior, but I knew the reason. I whispered to Sam.
What?
So that's what it was.
Maybe if we wait at home, they'll come by eventually? Sounds like it.
Sam threw the wire down, and we headed back inside. A few minutes later, there was a sound at the door, followed by the doorbell. It was Nicola. I unlocked the door and opened it.
Hello, Nicola. About earlier. Shut up! Move!
As soon as the door opened, Nicola pushed past me, clicking her tongue as she entered. She was visibly in a bad mood. Stomping through the house like a monster, she plopped down on the sofa. Sam, already in the living room, started to speak, but Nicola beat him to it.
I'm so thirsty. What about my tea?
You're so slow. You should move before being asked. That's the rule, isn't it?
Yes.
And you locked the door again, didn't you?
This is why people say the son's wife in this neighborhood is so cold. As if there's anything in this house worth stealing. Pretending to be all high and mighty is just annoying.
Huh? Nicola continued to complain. I can't stand it anymore. I grabbed a half-empty plastic bottle nearby and slammed it on the table in front of Nicola. She froze, eyes wide.
Mary! Here, water for you. And you mentioned there's nothing to steal, but unfortunately, there are greedy and dirty people out there. Like someone who would steal electricity, for example.
Nicola's face showed turmoil. I sat down next to Nicola. Despite being right beside her, Nicola wouldn't even look at me. She looked down, her face turning pale.
What's wrong, Mary? You're completely different. Oh, Nicola. There's only so much I can take. Did you think I was some kind of saint?
I tried to lighten the mood with a joke, but Nicola looked as if she had encountered a demon rather than a deity. Nicola looked at Sam for help, but he just shook his head silently. Nicola had no allies, with an angry daughter-in-law beside her and Sam. As there was no one inclined to help nearby, Nicola's next move was predictable.
I'm sorry. I just remembered something. I have to go now. You're not going anywhere.
I pressed down on Nicola's shoulder as she tried to stand up from the sofa. Nicola's rear sank back into the sofa.
Mary! Really today? You were the one who said you were thirsty, weren't you, Nicola? Surely you're not saying you can't drink my water? After making such a fuss, that wouldn't make sense, would it?
Nicola, with tears in her eyes, reached for the plastic bottle but was stopped by Sam. Nicola looked relieved, but I didn't actually want to make her drink the leftover water. The real issue was yet to be addressed.
When did you start stealing our electricity? Stealing! What an awful thing to say! But the fact is, the wiring plugged into our outlet was leading to your house, wasn't it?
Nicola tried to speak several times, searching for an excuse, but couldn't find any that would work. There was no way to talk her way out of this situation. All that was left was for Nicola to admit and apologize. I thought that was going to happen, but it seemed luck smiled on Nicola for a moment. The doorbell rang, and when I checked, Tony was there.
Is Nicola here?
It seemed Tony had gone out for a bit and came back to find the door unlocked, the TV on, but Nicola missing, so he was worried.
Tony!
Nicola cried for help as if reinforcements had arrived. Tony was confused by Nicola's unusual state. Then, Sam explained everything from the beginning. After thinking for a moment, Tony slowly said,
Isn't there some mistake here?
It's hard to believe at first that his wife was secretly stealing electricity from his son and daughter-in-law's home.
So, who did the wiring? Do you expect me to believe a stranger came and connected our houses?
Tony crossed his arms and pondered again. Then he agreed.
Well, we should probably go and see it.
And stood up.
But
Nicola tried to stop him, flustered, but Tony asked Sam to show him to the outlet. The wire ran into a shed where it wasn't visible. After checking, Tony came back pale-faced. And immediately made Nicola apologize. I'm sorry. Truly, I am. Nicola silently looked down. Like a child. According to Tony, the wiring was connected via an extension cord to a battery and Nicola's computer. The battery was bought when they moved in. She was advised to charge it during cheaper, nighttime rates and using it during the day was cost-effective. Nicola had been doing exactly that. Initially, it was just that, but then she started plugging in her computer and other appliances since there were free sockets on the extension cord. Eventually, she used our electricity day and night. Nicola justified her actions by saying it was more cost-effective. It was infuriating enough that she had been stealing electricity. But even more so that she had looked down on me while lying all along.
You've been saying how pitiful Sam is for having a wife who can't save, or criticizing me for buying sweets while being unable to save. Remember?
That's the truth, though. Her lack of remorse was almost impressive.
Saving by using someone else's electricity isn't saving. It's just a crime.
I continued.
And don't think we'll just let this go because we're family. If you sincerely apologize, that's one thing. But if you keep this attitude,
We'll have to involve the police." Nicola looked surprised, as if she thought getting caught would be the end of it.
"What kind of daughter-in-law are you? To betray your own family?"
"Don't talk like that. We just want you to make amends because we are family." As I reached for my phone, Nicola panicked and lunged at me. Sam quickly restrained her.
"There's no evidence."
"With everything laid out like this, you still need evidence? Let me tell you something conclusive." I pointed towards the roof. Nicola squinted, then realized. Yes, our house is equipped with security cameras, which happened to cover the area around the outlet. Nicola murmured a small, "Ah."
"Is this enough for you? And one more thing."
"There's more?" "The reason you were in such a hurry today was because of the release of limited edition sweets, wasn't it?" "No way." I smiled. "Yes. I had a friend get them for me, so I managed to secure them. If you hadn't been busy stealing electricity, you might have been able to get them on your computer, too." "Too bad." Nicola trembled and then sat down on the spot. After discussing with Sam, we decided against reporting Nicola to the police. She had admitted to it, and we had evidence, but it was too much hassle, and being family, it might get brushed off. Instead, we decided to get a proper apology and compensation for the electricity from Tony and Nicola. It was awkward living so close, but it had to be done. Tony and Nicola, perhaps feeling awkward too, eventually moved back to their old house. Apparently, word got out about the electricity theft, and Nicola became the subject of rumors. Nicola was devastated and wanted to return to their original home. It turns out Nicola thought she was good at neighborhood relations. But in reality, people were just being polite. After paying us, Tony and Nicola were left with little money. But we would not help them. They needed to save on their own, especially on their beloved sweets. As for me, now that Nicola is gone, I'm enjoying my life, deciding which sweets to buy next with the electricity bill